all about loops. In computer programming, a loop is a piece of code that takes the elements within its brackets and repeats it a set number of times. And there are two different types of loops that we're going to look at in this class. The first one is the while loop. So the while loop structure is something like this. While, and then in parentheses you put the condition of the while loop. So here's the condition, right? And within the curly brackets here, you put the code that is going to be run over and over by this while loop. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, the main reason is to avoid repetition in your code. One of the key principles of computer science or of computer programming is a principle called DRY, which stands for do not repeat yourself. And so if you find yourself repeating the same line of code over and over and over again, then you probably need to structure your code differently. And that's a time when a loop might come in handy. So for example, if I wanted to print out all of the numbers between 1 and 20 to my console, I could do that with 20 lines of repeating code. I could go console log 1, and then just repeat this lots of times, right? Let's just do 1 to 10 here so you can kind of see the idea. I'm going to repeat this 10 times. You can see how tedious this is. That's 8, 9, 10. Okay, and then I'll change the number in each of my log statements. That's not what I want. Okay, so you kind of get the idea, right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then if I run this, I get all of the numbers from 1 to 10. Now, that was incredibly tedious. I think that probably took 30 seconds for me to type out. And for those of you that are still with me, bless you. So an easier way to do that is to use a while loop. And so what I can do is I can set a variable using my var keyword. I'm going to set x is equal to 1. And then I'm going to set my while loop while x is less than or equal to 10 console log x, and then increment x by 1. Now this is a notation that you haven't seen before, this x plus plus. This can also be written x equals x plus 1, or alternately x plus equals 1. There are lots of ways to do this in JavaScript. When you're incrementing just by 1, the kind of standard way to do this is to use the plus plus operator. Plus plus takes the number that you have and it just adds 1 to it. If you want to subtract 1, you can use minus minus, but plus plus just does a simple increment. Okay, so now I've taken what was a 10-line program with repeated console logs all the way through, and I've turned it into a 5-line program with no repetition. Now watch. I get the same thing. Now what's cool about this is I can change my while condition here, and I can turn it into whatever I want. So while x is less than or equal to, I had it as 10, I just turned it to 100. And watch, I run it, and I get all of the numbers between 1 and 100. Now, that would have taken 100 lines of code. So that's incredibly more efficient than what I was doing before. So, what we're going to do in this exercise today is we're going to take a look at the code that we used last time for our Guess the Number game, and we're going to add a while loop to the Guess the Number game. So I'm going to copy in the code from the game. Okay, so I'm going to grab it over here, and oh, you can't see what I'm doing here, so this doesn't make a lot of sense to you, but here we go. All right, there's the code for the game, and I'm going to copy that over. There we go. Okay, so in our game before, we set our number as 6, we prompted the user for the number, and then we basically informed the user whether they got the number right or wrong, or if it was too high or too low. So if I run this game and I guess the number 3, it prints out to the console too low. And if I guess the number 7, it prints out too high. And if I guess the number 6, because that's the one that we set as the computer number, it prints you got it right. And then I can also deal with cases where there's no user input at all, or the user input isn't a number. Great. Now, this isn't a very fun game because it gives me hints as to whether my number is high or low, but it doesn't give me a second chance to guess the number. And so I want to do that. So what I'm going to do here is set up a while loop that will keep asking the user, it'll keep asking the user if for a new number until the user selects the right number. And so I'm going to set this up right now. We're going to do while user number not equal to computer number. And then we take the brackets and we're going to enclose all of this code here in those curly brackets. Now, I like to indent my code so you can see what's in each of the sets of brackets. That's kind of a gotcha with JavaScript. If you don't indent, you're going to get lost pretty quickly. Okay, so now what I'm doing here is I'm going to continue to run this until we guess the right number. So I'm going to run, and I'm going to guess the number 3, and it's popping up guess the number again. I'll guess 8, and it's popping up guess the number again. I know it's 6, so I'll guess 6. Now you'll notice that all of the responses that I should have gotten printed out here to the console. That isn't great for our game because our game is just asking us for a number again and again, but it's not actually showing us the responses until the end of the game. So in order to show us the responses in real time, we have to use a different output. Instead of console log, we're going to use an output called alert. And what alert does is it pops up an alert box with the text in the alert box that is in the parentheses. And the alert box just has an option to dismiss the box, to basically say, okay, I got the alert. And then once the alert box is dismissed, we'll go back into the while loop and run the prompt box again. So you can see how this works. Can I guess the number? The number's 3. It's too low. Can I guess the number? It's 7, too high. Can I guess the number? It's 6, you got it right. And since at this point, when I've guessed 6, the user number is equal to the computer number, this will no longer go through the while loop. It basically, we set the user number to the same thing as the computer number. It evaluated it, and it alerted you got it right because it went through this if statement. It got to the end of the while loop, and then it went back up to the top and checked to see whether user number was equal to the computer number. Since the user number and the computer number were equal to one another, this expression, user number is not equal to computer number, evaluated as false, and we exited our while loop. Now, there's a kind of a tricky piece when you're working with while loops. There's a kind of bug in computer programs called infinite loops. And while loops are usually the culprit for that. So basically, if you have an infinite loop, what's going to happen is you're going to have a condition for your while loop that never becomes false. So your while loop will continue to run over and over and over and over again. And so if I were to just say while true, can you guess my number? What's going to happen here is no matter what I guess, it's going to keep asking me for a number. Now, in this case, it's just going to keep the program going, and I'm not going to be able to get out of the program. I'm actually kind of stuck here. I'm going to have to close out of this window and go into another window in order to deal with it. Sometimes when you have an infinite loop, it will actually, it'll cause a crash in your system. So I'm going to show you one of those. We're going to say while true, console log, and we're just going to log hello. Now, we have nothing that's going to make this false, so this is just going to keep running, and we're never going to get to any of the code that's down further in this tutorial. So check this out. We're going to run, and we just keep running and running and running. Look at how many hellos have been printed out. Now, what Replit did for us, which is the system that we're using here, is once it runs a lot of the same code, it hits a range error, and it basically signals a potential infinite loop. So if you get this error, potential infinite loop, that's why. You can deal with that error by taking a look at your while loops and making sure that every one of your while loops has a way for it to become false. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to take our Guess My Number game that we've enhanced using our while loop, and we're going to add some more things to it. We're going to make this game even more fun. That's the next step for you and the assignment for this lesson. I would suggest that you try the assignment first and watch the video when you get stuck. And good luck on that.